Welcome to Real Smart, the real estate podcast you've been waiting for. I'm Spencer Kallick, a real estate and land use attorney at Matkins. On this show, I sit down with some of the most dynamic and accomplished voices in real estate to explore trends shaping the industry and uncover what truly sets great leaders apart. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Smart podcast. Today, I am joined with some special guests. We've got Jason and Steven Summers, brothers and co-founders of Crest Real Estate, the largest project management and entitlement firm here in Los Angeles, although they're already taking over the world. Jason serves as the president and is known for his access to off-market properties, sharp deal analysis, deep relationships across LA's real estate community. And Steven, Crest CEO, leads the firm's zoning and entitlement work, helping clients navigate complex approvals and stay ahead of policy changes. In this episode, we'll talk about how they built and scaled Crest, how zoning and policy trends are shaping the LA real estate market, and what it takes to lead a successful firm as business partners and brothers. Jason, Steven, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure being here at Matkins. You guys are definitely one of our top law firms.
One of our top? What was that?
You know, I was wondering if I was going to say.
Here it comes.
I was deciding if I was going to say our favorite, but honestly, you know, working with you and Alan.
You're one of my favorite.
No,
you're one of my favorite.
Working with you and Alan is our favorite experiences and opportunity to really dive into the most complex projects that we have, and that's why we call you guys in, and vice versa. You put out the Crest bat signal, and we're there, and same thing goes for you guys. You guys have helped us through many of our most important professional and personal things we've ever dealt with. And it's really appreciated, and we're happy to be here and talk to you.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited because we love you guys, and we enjoy. It's nice to actually be able to sit down in person together. We're always on Zooms or kind of running around, but nice to actually be here in the flesh together. So I want to back up a couple steps because it's very rare. You guys kind of fill a niche, right? There are lots of permit expeditors out there, but you guys have kind of developed somewhat of a kind of juggernaut in the LA real estate permitting environment, but this didn't just happen all of a sudden. You guys have been working at this for a long time. So maybe, Steven, take me back. How did you get into this business? How are you sitting here in this room today, other than I invited you? But tell me a bit about the kindling of Crest and obviously your all's partnership as brothers.
Absolutely. Well, Jason and my story began in a fairly similar way, but a few years apart. Jason's the older brother, and when he was going to UCLA, got an internship with a land use consulting firm here in Los Angeles, and was fortunate to kind of go through the program there, had a great mentor, and was able to rise the ranks in that company so that by the time I was at UCLA, I also ended up, that's right, absolutely.
I like it.
And actually second generation as well. Our dad's a Bruin too.
My father went to UCLA too, so there you go.
So by the time I was at UCLA, I also took an internship with the land use consulting firm working under Jason at the time. Jason and I both, before getting into this, were interested in becoming attorneys. And
it was a smart move, by the way. I'm glad you decided not to be attorneys. Much better.
Look, I actually really respect and appreciate the work that you guys do. We do a lot of sort of semi-legal work.
I mean, you might as well be an attorney. I mean, we're working on lots of things together where you're deep in the weeds and know more than, frankly, most attorneys in town about how the zoning code works and what state law allows and what have you. But anyways, keep going.
No,
so
absolutely.
Did your internship.
So yeah, we did the internship, and ultimately I think both of us realized that this field of land use and development consulting operated at this intersection of law and legal analysis, which is something we knew we enjoyed, and architecture, design, and real estate development, which is something I think before getting into it, there was always an interest, but we didn't realize quite how much we loved it. And I know for me, the moment I started working with really high-level architects on figuring out strategies to unlock the potential of really complicated, three-dimensional hillside properties that we do a lot of work on here in Los Angeles, I realized that sort of taking the legal written word and applying that in 3 dimensions was a really fascinating bit of work to get involved in. And from there, when I graduated, Jason and I wanted to sort of expand what we were doing. We decided to go start our own firm. This was back in 2012. And that's really when Crest Real Estate was born. And from there—
Where was that first spot? Was it like you're in your parents' garage?
Or was our uncle's
story.
Let's hear it.
Relevant to the time.
Sure, yeah. So our first spot was actually our uncle's backyard in the Palisades, at a house in the Will Rogers community of the Palisades that for decades was the Summers family gathering point for all of our biggest, gatherings for Thanksgiving, weddings, etc. And he was very happy to host us in the backyard for a lot of initial meetings as we were getting the company up off of the ground. Unfortunately, that house is no longer there today, and I'm sure as we kind of continue this discussion, we'll talk about the reason.
Just left from meeting with him and his wife at our offices to talk about our final strategies for listing the property, because it's one of the most unique properties in Palisades. So we're actually going to help him list it and not charge him for that.
Amazing.
Because, it's family and it's important. But that property was so special, and going there and walking through the rubble and remembering where I'd, play certain games with family, and the giant tree that, had the swing on it, which is burned to the ground. It's devastating.
It's terrible.
That is the origin location.
And then from the backyard to where was your next office? How'd you kind of grow this out?
So that was actually from when I was going to UCLA. See, we try and kind of envision a lot of these things ahead of time. And so there's an Equinox in Westwood.
Yep,
we can
I've
see
been
it right
there.
out the window.
I used to be a member, not so much anymore, but
I was always like, okay, I want to join Equinox. Okay. And I was like, wait, I want my office to be in the Equinox building.
So right on Wilshire Boulevard in Westwood.
Efficiency.
Yeah, of course.
Which is really the foundation of everything with Crest. How can you make things more and more efficient? So we had our offices in the Westwood Equinox building. And so we got all of our employees Equinox memberships, and we were there all the time. And unfortunately, UCLA took over the entire building and displaced us. But that was the initial dream spot, because also, just like this office, we could look out and show our clients all the projects in the hills that we were working on.
So you officially opened your doors when?
2012.
2012, just the two of you.
Yeah. Well, no. We also had Thomas, who's an attorney and my best friend from growing up, and an account assistant, and then very shortly after, architect.
So fast forward now, what, 13 years. How many employees at Crest?
We're close to 40.
40 employees, wow. That's a lot. Is that?
I'd like to find more.
Yeah?
We're
if you know anybody out there, or someone's looking for a job, they might
it's a
be able to hire
really
you.
interesting skill set to basically do this blend of law and architecture, and then also have the personality to deal with the different clientele that we deal with and the city employees.
So I think I could define it for you, but I'm curious, how would you define what is Crest?
Crest is a land use consulting and permit expediting company with an expertise in both the regulations and the process, but with a focus on helping you maximize your project, both in terms of achieving what you want to achieve with the project, but also getting it done as quickly as possible.
And without giving away the secret sauce, how many projects do you say you're actively working on at any given time?
There are several hundred at any one given time.
Wow. Yeah, so people online and listening to this and watching this can't see, but as I turn over my shoulder, literally every project out this window, you guys could probably count and touch that you've either entitled or are in the process of entitling. You said thousands?
Yeah, I mean, we're crossing work order 10,000.
10,000.
So
wow, unbelievable.
We're at 10,000 out. Oh my God, it's flying.
That's amazing. That's no small accomplishment, especially in a super complicated regulatory environment like Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, from the early days, I was talking about how we enjoyed interpreting these codes in 3 dimensions. And I think we really found this niche that there was a need for in the market, where architects have been trying to clearly understand and navigate these really complicated regulations, but there weren't, expediters that were focused on moving things through the city quickly that could also really understand the codes and the regulations. We approached it from more of kind of a legal mindset of understanding the regulations, but also brought in architects onto the team. So the majority of our team is architects, also engineers, and then urban planners and former city officials. And so we've gathered a sort of, broad set of backgrounds, but real experts, people that have training in, real estate development and design, and are having them, alongside us, interpret these codes and help describe them in 3 dimensions to architects.
Well, a major component of any success story, I think, also is timing. When the company was starting, we were coming out of the 2008 recession, and we were in a situation where modern architecture was spreading throughout the LA area, and people were looking to do these daylighted basements in the hillside zone. And we were kind of the first people to really figure out the interpretation on how to utilize that and implement it. And so that spread quickly. Our 3D modeling program, which was our PDAs, our property development analyses, was something that started to spread quickly as well to show people what they could and couldn't do with what people had thought previously was, pretty undevelopable pieces of land. And so through that and with just reputation growth, that's how the company continued to evolve. And we've never really done marketing until really, I'd say the last 18 months. We've been more comfortable going out and talking about the company in a more public setting. Before, for these thousands and thousands of projects, which I think gave us a lot of great credibility, it was just word of mouth. And so when people called us for a project, it was based on us doing an excellent job for someone else. And that's typically still how it goes, but we're certainly now expanding different markets and as well.
So real quick, you talk about markets. I think of you in LA, I think of you in Beverly Hills. Obviously, Palisades we'll get to, but what other markets are you guys now in?
Well, Malibu is a really complex
Absolutely.
zoning area, and we have dedicated staff there. Santa Monica's its own jurisdiction, West Hollywood's its own jurisdiction, Hidden Hills, Calabasas, Newport, Manhattan Beach, they're all their own
taking over the world.
Right? And each one has its own set of zoning codes, and we just have a principle of how we analyze it. Of course, the more projects you do in a neighborhood, the better you get at it. And Crest is more than anything these days a data company where, because we have so much experience with so many different projects, a big architecture firm, the biggest ones for residential, they do 30 projects a year. We're doing 300 a year. So we just see the variables.
You got the reps, you've got the precedent, you know how to get things through the system. I mean, so Expediter makes me, when I hear the word Expediter, I think moves fast. Mm-hmm. We've got government entities that you're dealing with all day long that are not known for moving fast, shall we say. So how do you actually move things faster as opposed to just an architect doing it on their own or a property owner doing their own? What's the kind of Crest way of doing things?
So expediting, making the projects go fast, it's the key to what we do, but it's not about what happens once the project is in the city. To us, and I think this is something that has set us apart, the expediting is done when the project is being designed. It's about proper due diligence, thorough review of the plans. On the front end, yeah. Yeah, so that the set that gets submitted to the city is thoroughly vetted. We call it doing plan check before plan check. And that really is the key. You want to cut down on the number of rounds of review with the city and the number of significant corrections that come back. Every project has corrections, it's inevitable. But if we can remove those corrections that are going to affect the massing of the building, then we're going to get through the process significantly faster.
So we've got to go to the Palisades for a second. Not just the Palisades, but also Altadena, places where terrible fires here in the LA area several months ago. I still remember, frankly, sitting in this exact seat, looking out the window and seeing the Palisades burning. The three of us are all local guys here, born and raised. What was your first impression when you first heard what was happening in the Palisades in Altadena? What came to mind?
Well, I mean, the first was shock, right? You couldn't believe that it was actually burning through these communities. And then,
and you have family members there.
Family members,
and clients.
Friends, clients, hundreds of projects we worked on out there. I mean, it was unprecedented, unfathomable what happened. But once the reality of it checked in, our initial was, how do we help resolve this?
And right? You guys very quickly got an action.
Calling us the next day about what do we do? How do we make this, how do we protect ourselves?
And you had all the answers, right?
Well, it was an evolving process, still an ever evolving process. The city of LA is actually, I think one of the better things that the city of LA has done under the current mayor's leadership has been to set guidelines in place for the fire rebuilds. And, something that people need to understand is all projects that burn down are eligible for the expedited plan check process, whether 110% more or less. And we immediately started, helping people understand what the rules and regulations were going to be, and it continued to evolve and be the first line of getting the information disseminated to the industry and to homeowners. And then we're also handling a venture right now that is currently a nonprofit to get the Case Study 2.0 program.
Tell me what that is, yeah.
Sure, so Case Study 2.0 is an initiative that we created alongside a number of tremendously talented architects in February. Basically, right after the fires, Jason and I were having all these conversations about how do we help, as he mentioned, because I think throughout the city of Los Angeles, every citizen was thinking about how can I help? And a lot of people, frankly, were feeling helpless because they're not actually in the industry where they can make a difference. And we were talking to each other saying, we actually have connections and know-how, knowledge that can actually benefit people. How do we bring that to benefit the most people possible? And ultimately, the idea that we landed on was Case Study 2.0. So what we've done is we've reached out to about 40 top local and international architects and provided them with the zoning parameters for the 8 most commonly replicated lots.
The pre-plan check, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So we've listed the maximum height allowances, floor area, setbacks, things along those lines on the 8 most commonly replicated parcel shapes and sizes throughout the Palisades and Altadena. And we've asked the architects to provide model home designs for these parcels. And we said to the architects, we're not going to dictate the style. We want there to be contemporary homes, traditional homes, single story, 2-story. Do what you think you will execute best, but it has to be able to be built affordably, much more affordably than a typical custom single family home, because custom single family home construction has gotten extraordinarily expensive. It has to be allowed to be adopted as a standard plan so that each home can be replicated across multiple parcels.
And cities have done this, or the city's done this, right? Whether it's ADUs that have set designs, or like I think my pool in my backyard was a standard design that they could just go pull a permit for and not have to get plan checked.
Absolutely. And so these architects have now put together these plans. We actually have our launch event later this week for the initiative.
Is there a website? Is there?
Yeah, casestudy2.com. It's case study, then the number 2.com. And we have our launch event coming this Thursday. We've got 55 designs, all different styles. Each architect has chosen a preferred builder that is going to be the builder of that design so that that contractor can start to achieve an economy of scale on building it. And we've also reached partnerships with a number of different material providers, Fleetwood, Western Doors and Windows, Eco Outdoor, Clay Tile, and a number of others who are going to be providing materials and other items at significant discounts to houses built under the program. So ultimately, what this is going to result in is custom quality homes that are able to be built for significantly less money.
Right. So filling that gap between the custom homes, which are a component, we already have a bunch of them that we're working on, right? But quite expensive. And then there's the mass production developer homes, which because there's 5,000 houses missing, we need that.
Some of those,
because we just need to build back the community and have housing there. But then there's this gap in the middle, right? Which is the character of Palisades Altadena, where it's these really, it's very lovely homes. And so we don't want just the cookie cutter designs all over. So it's these brilliant minds of architecture coming in and creating something that is affordable that can fill in that gap.
I think that's a huge help because
mass scale.
A lot of people, who live in the Palisades or Altadena, they didn't build their home. They didn't hire Crest. They didn't hire an architect. They have no clue. And, we're in this business. We realize how challenging it is, right? We wouldn't have jobs if it wasn't challenging. But at the same time, I love the fact that you guys are giving back practically and helping kind of expedite a lot of these homes. I'm curious, what are you hearing already, right? There's a lot of chatter about, things are going to be done, in 30 days, or gosh, Palisades, Altadena is not going to be rebuilt for the next 20 years. What are you actually seeing on the ground? Because you're the ones who are actually, and your staff are literally in the trenches doing this every day. So I'm curious
if I had to predict what's going to happen is we'll have hundreds of projects under construction next year.
2027 or 2026.
2026. So it'll be hundreds. I don't know if that's, 400 or 800, but I think my estimate is it's somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
And those projects will take, 1.5 to 2 years to build for the smaller lots.
So now you're out to 2028.
And during that next interim phase, you'll start seeing, into the thousands, right? And so I think that 5 years from now, I'd project that there's 2,000 homes built, maybe a little more, but we really need a greater than 50% margin, I think, for it to be a really vibrant area again. That's not just a construction community. So the more people that can start building sooner and get more than over the 50% threshold by year 5, which I think is a goal, and it's going to take a lot of different strategies to make that happen. That's when I think the community starts having its resurgence and coming back. I think that by year 7, you're really feeling a lot of momentum and a significant amount of houses. And then there's going to be just a number of lots that that lag behind. And then 10 years from now, it's going to be one of the best communities in the world.
So talk to me about this, because, I hear some people are going to build something new. I know people who literally moved into a new house. It was done a year or two ago. They still have the plans. They were just approved by the city, and yet they go to submit them, and the city's like, "Oh yeah, you can't build that anymore." Or, you're not even trying to, add 10% or anything else on top of it. So what actually needs to happen to go from where we are today to actually getting shovels in the ground? Are things actually getting permitted in 30 days?
They are getting permitted.
Okay. So then you guys don't have a job anymore. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, no, it's still, you have to meet the codes. You still have to go through all the different departments. So our job is more fast-tracked in this fire rebuild program.
But you're it's more volume, essentially. You're doing more homes.
And we're offering discounts too to people that have lost their houses as well. So it's not even about that. We're always just there to get things done. That's always the point of Crest.
And that's been my experience too. I have to say, obviously you're on this podcast. I'm not just saying this, but you guys are some of the best folks out there in terms of quickly figuring out what the problem is and then figuring out a solution, even though it's difficult, even though it's challenging, even though it's messy, even though it's not a linear fashion. We've been working on some projects for several years, but at the end of the day, you get them done. I'm curious, how do you guys divide your time? My experience has been, Steven, you're kind of more city of LA, Jason a little bit more Beverly Hills, other places, but you're running a 40-person business. How do you kind of divide and conquer?
Well, I think that first and foremost, we trust each other 100%.
It helps to have a clone.
Yeah, and basically, I wish there was more.
You're somewhat of a clone, a little different, because I know you well enough to know a little different.
That's fair. We're
non-identical twins.
The results.
Well, you're doing all khaki. You do the little black and khaki. That's the
results
difference.
of our actions, though, always seem to result in the same end goal, right? And so we know that the other person, even if we're not checking in all the time, is handling it the way the other one would, right?
How often do you guys talk?
We talk
many times,
several times a week. Yeah.
So you're not constantly texting all day long or on the phone or anything, kind of just check in?
We try our best because there is so much to handle and we have so many hundreds of projects that ideally we can, silo off. And now we have, a bunch of directors in their roles at the company as well. So it's becoming a much more, standardized practice.
We collaborate. Sorry,
like a law firm. Sure. That's really our model, is a law firm.
We collaborate more on management of the company itself. And
hiring,
that's where,
firing, P&L, things like that.
Personnel decisions, growth strategies, what we want to focus on, things like that. On the individual projects, we definitely are collaborating on some of the, most complex ones, but really there is that trust that Jason is off handling his projects the right way I'm handling mine. And also, beyond that, it's our team. We now have a spectacular team of directors, project managers, et cetera, who have been with us for a number of years, many of them close to a decade now. And I think that's been critical to our ability to really spread ourselves further across more projects, is having really, really talented people that can, also be involved handling those projects.
Plus doing some developments, which has been amazing at teaching us what happens after a permit.
So talk about it. You guys are also developers in your own right.
We've tried to have one project or a couple, under construction at any one time, and we've done the process. We've built some really beautiful homes as a team, and it's fun to be the decision maker. Whereas typically on these other projects, we're guidance.
But it's also then it's your own money now all of a sudden. So it's a little more personal. And so it kind of gives you that perspective.
But we treat all of our projects, honestly, like they are.
No, and that's been my experience too. But it's when it hits your bank account as opposed to somebody else's, it definitely kind of ups the ante.
Yes, it's fun. I don't feel a huge differential, but it is certainly there. In all reality, it is. But it's
we are the type of guys that even if it's not our development project, worst up at night thinking about every single one of the projects in our office when there's something critical going on.
Look, I worked for a guy once who said that I don't have problems, my clients have problems. And I never understood that. I'm like, I'm up all night long. When my clients have problems, I'm losing sleep. I'm not able to function until I get it figured out and get it solved for them. And you guys, I know, the same way.
Yeah, and look, doing all of those different ventures and things has been really great, and it's because we have the support team. But it's also made us so much better by having this rounded understanding. I've had my real estate license since I was 20. Steven's had his for a long time. We understand all these different facets of the real estate community, and I think that's what also gives us the best service provider to our clients, to basically be able to guide them on all aspects and be like, we've been in that position, and to actually speak it through and understand what it takes to do a successful construction project, whether it's development or for an end user, or it's commercial, retail, or a house.
Because if you're guiding someone through land use and expediting, and all you are thinking about is how to get through the process as quickly as possible, you can take your clients in the wrong direction in terms of their overall development. So we are definitely trying to always keep that in mind, and have gotten better at it because of the development projects that we've actually done.
And people are now seeking our advice at the front end on the overall project from A to Z. And that's where we want to be involved. We want to be fully integrated with everything.
My experience has been, I'll get calls all the time, people saying they want to build a single family house, they want to figure out what they can rebuild. My first phone call usually is almost always you guys, or say, here, talk to Steven, talk to Jason. But similarly, you guys call us oftentimes. And so I think folks are interested to kind of know, well, wait, land use entitlements, where does lawyers start, where does an expediter begin? And we often work hand in hand. I often will call you, kind of on the early stages to kind of gut check things. And similarly, when you guys kind of run into some hairy situations, or folks, whether it's coastal commission issues, which is a whole other conversation we could have, or whether it's CEQA issues, or neighbors filing lawsuits. Not that that ever happens. We have a good partnership in that way, and I've always appreciated that.
For us, collaborating with a really good land use attorney is critical to kind of expanding our abilities with what we do. We always tell our clients we will never be gun shy about recommending that somebody bring in a top tier, an additional expert. So sometimes that's an environmental consultant. Oftentimes, it could be a land use attorney on certain projects, and it's always you.
Very kind of you.
And, for us, it's all about what is going to be best for the project. And your expertise and our expertise, there's overlap, right? It's like a Venn diagram, but there's definitely differences. And, when we're collaborating with a land use attorney, we really want to be, we're using you to really think about, okay, a couple steps down the road, what are the potential legal outcomes here, and how are we preparing our case most effectively to avoid that, but also to be ready for it if it comes?
I think that's right. What I see a lot of times is you guys are kind of the code ninjas, right? You guys have figured it all out, and something that I find incredibly valuable, which is anyone can read the code, exactly. Anyone can read the code, anyone could kind of chop through it, but how do you get things done? How do you figure it out? What was the kind of interpretation that made another project go, that made another project fail? And what can you see that's out there in the ether that you can adopt for your clients and for your own projects? And I think that's something that you guys have really cornered the market on. And sometimes even I'm amazed that the kind of things you guys can get done. But I think it just speaks to your repeat players. The market, the city, the people, the plan checkers, and how to get projects through the pipeline. And you have a good team. I will say, I'm glad you guys are here, but I've worked with lots of your team, and you guys have some of the best folks out there who, frankly, seems like you guys don't even have to worry about that much because they're out there getting deals done every day, which...
Yeah, and it's all experience-based, right? So the longer you're there, the more projects you've done, the more you've seen, the more you can then make a decision based on past experience.
So you guys have been doing this now for almost 20 years. Yeah. What have you seen change? Obviously, there's a lot of changes that have happened across Southern California, but what are the biggest trends or changes you've seen?
Yeah, I think the biggest changes are in the construction part of the industry. Construction costs over the last 5 years have doubled. That is causing people to really rethink how they're doing their projects. And that's something that I think is still evolving. And I think is going to be the next real trend is people have a really high expectation of what they're looking for in a property, but how do you build it at an affordable level? It's getting very, very difficult, and things in today's environment are making it even more difficult.
Capital markets make
Labor,
it.
tariffs, just general price increases. That is the thing that I think holds down the even greater, prowess of LA real estate.
Stephen, you're not allowed to say construction prices. So what have you seen change in the last decade and a half?
I mean, look, on our single family projects, and I think these things are linked in a way, we have seen a shift away from absolute maximization of square footage. For a while when we first started.
The McMansions don't always sell at the top dollar, you mean?
Exactly. And especially now when your construction cost per square foot is so high, if there is potential that you're actually going to sell for a higher number by building less square footage and focusing more on the landscape of the property, which is a big part of the beauty of living in Los Angeles. We've seen a major trend towards not building at the maximum, leaving space for the property to breathe. I think that's a great trend that is linked to what Jason was saying.
So if we're sitting here a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, what are we expecting in the future? You guys see so many projects. What is the landscape of Los Angeles in terms of building going to look like, especially in the single family home world?
Hopefully more landscape, more green, warm, healthy environments. The ultimate luxury right now is wellness, right? You're seeing that across the board. Having wellness facilities in the houses, having gardens, having an off-the-grid type home, ideally, even if they're large. It is more expensive to build that way, to these beautiful homes, but I think you're going to just keep seeing the trends going more and more wellness-based.
Yeah, I also think that, we're in this disaster recovery period right now. Out of a situation like this, there's bound to be some lessons learned and hopefully advancement in the industry as well. One thing in terms of lessons learned is retrofitting of existing houses. This is something that we've talked about a ton in our office, is when we look at what happened in the Palisades in Altadena, nobody really knows if it was entirely avoidable or could have been significantly lessened. But I think it's pretty clear that the fire spread through, from home to home due to a lot of deficiencies in these older homes that could have been addressed relatively inexpensively. Old houses had these vented attics where, embers from the flames that were traveling a half mile in the air would just go into the attic unblocked, and you've got dust and insulation and other things that are just a tinderbox inside of the attic. And so the firefighters would set up a line, and then 5 houses behind them would all of a sudden go up in flames from the inside out. And so I do think that is something that has to happen, is going into these communities that didn't burn and retrofitting those homes. There's a degree to this, right? And, there's gonna be limits to what people can spend, but at a minimum, there are certain lower level items, more fire resilient landscaping and protecting vented attics and the underside of eaves.
Concrete. I mean, I gotta say, I for the first time the other day drove up PCH. I hadn't done it since the fires had occurred. And just watching and seeing the houses that survived versus the ones that didn't. The ones that were stucco or concrete, smooth finish, for the most part, not all of them, but a lot of them survived. Obviously the ones that were just pure wood didn't, but it was fascinating. The ones, it's eerie, the ones that are still standing there are just concrete.
And it's actually, I think, in the Palisades, where they have these very high fire hazard zone requirements for new buildings that are significantly elevated fire safety requirements for new houses that have been in place for several years. You drive through that neighborhood and almost all the houses that remain are houses that were built with these updated standards. And so it's actually good to know that to some extent the standards actually work. It's just there were too many old houses that hadn't been upgraded.
Honestly, it's something that's been bothering me recently is we're now into the middle of summer, right? Early on after the fires, we were distributing information, all these fire protection systems for the exterior house, the ember vents. I'm not seeing many implemented. And,
people forget,
Palisades
people,
burned, Brentwood and Bel Air and Beverly Hills and the Hollywood Hills and everywhere. I mean, these people in the hills need to realize that this could very well happen.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but when.
And you need to get at least these lower level things taken care of with the ember vents. And so we're finishing up the case study 2 program, but I was actually talking today that kind of my next mission with Stephen, might be getting people to really pay attention to securing their neighborhoods. Because if just one house does it, that's great. Your whole neighborhood's gone and you're just standing there,
Which happened.
which happened a ton. Our favorite example is Michael Kovac's house, who's a brilliant architect. He did all these fire resistance measures and had FOSS check system, that red stuff that comes out of the airplanes, go off around his house. His grass is green. His house is there.
Wild.
No neighbors are around.
Wild.
So it
works, though.
there
Yeah.
anyways, because for years.
So it has to be done at the community level.
So people need to get their communities together to at least figure out how to make this happen. And we also need to work with companies, because the exterior fire sprinkler systems are coming at a bit too high of a cost for a six-figure price. It's going to be hard to implement that broadly. So there either needs to be rebates from the state, the insurance companies. Something needs to happen, though. We really can't have this happen again.
So let's pivot for a second. You guys run a business, very successfully, but I'm sure you get approached all the time by folks who are kind of getting started in real estate. What's your, you get asked, hey, how do I get to be Crest? How do we get to be Jason? How do I get to be Steven? Because people see that you've built this, frankly, an empire of, lots of projects, pretty much every project up in the hills. So what do you tell folks who are getting started? Would you tell them, literally run for the hills, don't be a permanent expediter? It's a terrible business, or what would you tell them?
Well, I like the architecture route is really something that I find to have. I think that architects are the most broadly educated, kind of creative minds in almost any industry I can think of, right? And they're such creatives, yet they're also very technical, right? And so those things merge. And I think an architecture background is something extremely valuable. And getting, working in a great office and having a mentor is really, the launch pad to success, right? We've done a lot of mentorship programs at our office. That's how I started. That's how he started. So we've continued that, and a lot of those people still work with us at Crest or have gone off and started their own things very successfully. And so I think that, having that understanding is a really good place to be in real estate, because, there's a lot of people that can study the markets and the trends on that, but the architecture and understanding the history of architecture, I think that gives people a leg up in LA real estate.
I like that. Steven, what about you?
I think more generally speaking, Jason and I work extremely hard and always have. And I'm a
I can
pretty
attest to that, by the way, because you guys are always cranking. I'm getting emails on the weekends, text messages at 11 o'clock at night. I see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been so far 15 years of, absolute grind. And to me, it's absolutely worth it. But I do think there is there's no replacing really hard work. And ultimately, we're working twice. Each year that we're working is really 2 years of a normal 9 to 5. So I do think that frankly makes a big difference. And it's not for everyone, and that's totally fine. And, we support that in our office as well. People work varying degrees, whether somebody wants the 9 to 5 or they want to work, more hours. And I think there's, benefits to either. But that is something, especially if you're trying to, start your own business, it's critical. And then the other thing, which we touched on earlier, is just treating every single project and client like it's our own. And the care for the outcome, it's going to show to the client, and it's going to result in a better outcome.
I think you're absolutely right. I like what you said about hard work. Hard work is super underrated. It's simplistic. Everyone's like, oh, work hard, right? But hard work is something that is not as valued, I feel like, these days. It's not something that is focused on enough. Everyone wants to make sure that they're comfortable, that there's flexibility, and I'm all for those things. But at the end of the day, you got to put in the reps, you got to put in the time, and you got to make some mistakes so you can learn from those. Again, very cliche, but without hard work, I don't know how folks are going to get deals done and who are going to be successful going forward.
There's a lifestyle sacrifice for sure, because when I was coming up, I was sleeping under the desk in my office. Like, there was no time off. And even last night, I was up till, I think my last email went out at 1, and my first email this morning went out at 6:30 because I was going through some sent this morning. Like, oh, dang it, I'm back to my old grind. And I actually started to create more of a separation, but the fires, and we just opened up in Miami, and just all these different things are happening. It's back to just we call 25/8.
25/8.
Yeah,
I hear you.
which as Steven said, it's not for everybody, but it is important, and there is a result that you get from the work at least, and so that's a good feeling.
I got to ask, because I know we've talked about it a little bit. You have a little bit of a maybe side hustle going on at the moment right now, related to wellness, sleeping, and staying awake. What's your new venture, my friend?
Well, one of the things that helps us work so much, honestly, caffeine, coffee, energy drinks.
You can't see all the caffeine and coffee off to the side, off the camera here, but yeah.
And so, I take so many of these supplement products that I really wanted to understand. I'm very health conscious and want to know exactly what was going into my body.
You're in good shape, man. You look good.
Thank you. Again, more hard work. Like, that's part of it, right? And so I wanted to understand what was going into my body. And so I had the idea, and it was actually somebody that used to work with us, got his MBA. And I had this idea of this company called Start Stop, a daytime and a nighttime supplement product for energy and for sleep. And it's really multiple things that I was taking on a daily basis in one product. And you can go to drinkstartstop.com or the Instagram.
The real question is, does your brother take it?
I don't know.
So I don't take supplements that often. I drink typically just my morning coffee, and that's it for me. But I will say I've taken it a number of times, especially when I know I have like a really long day where I have to be truly on top of it.
Kids are driving you crazy. You got a bunch of clients calling you.
Just big hearings, something like that. And I have taken it several times, and I mean it is really effective. And I will say also feels clean, which that's always been what's held me back on energy supplements in the past is feeling jittery. I can't stand that.
I wanted to know exactly what I was putting in my body. So it's a manufacturer in California, and I know exactly the dosages of each thing. And I mean, heck, our parents are now taking it actually.
Wow.
Our mom used to drink Diet Coke all the time. Our dad actually didn't drink very much caffeine, but he's actually taking it because it's the vitamins, it's not so much the caffeine. It's really for cognitive function, and it's fun. Look, unfortunately, we're serial entrepreneurs and we can't help ourselves. When we have an idea, we need to see it through, and it's fun to come up with something that's tangible and that you take every day and it's making a lot of your friends and family really happy. And then the sleep supplement too, a lot of people are really getting a lot of benefit out of that. So yeah, it's exciting.
I like it. So
thank you.
All right, so we've got a little side hustle going on, or maybe a big side hustle one day. Crest opening office in Miami. What's the next 5, 10, 15 years of Crest look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's growth. It's more growth. I think that it's
Crest
a focus
in New York, Crest in Chicago.
I think it's a focus on growth in a couple of ways. There's geographic growth. So that's to other cities and jurisdictions. That's going to be Miami, which we've already started. We opened up our office within the last couple of weeks there. We're going to be going to the Bay Area, the mountain towns, your Aspens, Park City, et cetera. That's going to be the most fun.
I agree with that. I like the Aspen one.
But it's also, expanding our share of the pie here in Los Angeles. At the end of the day, Los Angeles is always going to be our home base. And we've talked a lot today about the single family, but we do all types of projects. We do large scale.
We did a hotel together recently.
Yeah, absolutely. So, large scale hospitality, schools, retail, multifamily, affordable housing, self-storage projects. We're doing all of that. We want to do even more of it. And that really is about, one, doing a good job for the current clients, but also continuing to bring on top talent that can execute.
And letting people know that we are doing all of those projects at pretty big scale. We have many, many projects that are non-single family.
Absolutely.
But of course, that is bread and butter. People know us for the single family because that's where we cut our teeth on. But it's fun to really just keep expanding the growth and the information that we're able to provide to people.
I love it. Well, guys, I really appreciate you joining the podcast today. This has been a lot of fun and a treat for me. Again, I'm biased because I like having you here in person, but really appreciate our listeners listening, watching online. If you haven't, go check out Crest Real Estate. Is it crestrealestate.com, right?
It is.
And we'll make sure to put the other links in our job.
Thank you. You're a brilliant guy, truly.
I appreciate that. Very kind.
Steve and I really look up to the attorneys that we work with because that was what we envisioned our path to be. And it's great to have such a collaborative and also friend relationship with you. And your office does the best work. Thank you to everybody that helped put this on and everybody that's been on your team and all the products in the past and present and future.
I love it. Well, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate everyone tuning in today. Hope you have a great day. Thanks.
The
content of this podcast is for the general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between you, the host, guest, or Alan Matkins. You should not act or rely on any information discussed without first consulting a qualified attorney regarding your specific situation. Any opinions expressed are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views of Alan Matkins or its clients.